Okay, Dune. I finished it in one sitting, mostly angry, partly impressed, and completely unable to pretend it didn't get under my skin. It's about humanity's future, a desert planet, and spice, which everyone needs, as it's the thing that makes space travel possible, and thus makes empires bleed for control. This desert planet, Arrakis, is home to the Fremen, people who live in the deep desert, who know how to survive what kills everyone else. There, a noble house gets set up to die. A boy named Paul Atreides gets thrown into sand, betrayal, and prophecy. Within Paul's story, the author, Frank Herbert, explores potential and consequential answers to questions he wants the reader to meditate on. Questions such as, who owns the future, who gets to be a messiah, and what happens to a person when the galaxy decides they're the answer. What caught me off guard was how Herbert writes Arrakis like he's been there. It's almost as if he was born and raised in the desert, as I was. How he describes the desert as alive is all too familiar to me. The heat that isn't just temperature, it's thirst as a personality. The way sand isn't scenery, it's an enemy with patience. The still suits, the discipline, the fact that water is both religion and economics at once. My own scorching sandpit of a home planet taught me that the desert doesn't care about your feelings. Arrakis is worse. It's political. People die for moisture. That felt real in a way that made my chest tight. If you've never lived where the sun is a weapon, you'll still get it. If you have, you'll read certain chapters and feel like someone's reading your memories, just with more worms. Paul, and this is where I started arguing with the book in my head, Paul isn't lucky. He's trained. Body, mind, politics, combat. Then the universe adds visions on top. Paths branching, futures narrowing, the weight of what might happen if you choose wrong. I know that weight. It's very similar to the weight I carry, and just as heavy. One where Paul didn't ask to be the pivot point, but too bad. He is. In Dune, Herbert does what most hero-centric stories chicken out of doing. He makes the reader question and doubt the hero. He shows Paul getting good at being the thing people need, and shows the cost before the victory parade. The book is suspicious of heroes, to which I say, good. Heroes or chosen ones are how crowds, or in my case, councils, outsource responsibility. Paul's not a clean messiah fantasy. He's a knife that learns it's also a flag. I have opinions about that. The Bene Gesserit witches plan bloodlines like other people plan dinner. They whisper in ears for generations. They treat prophecy like engineering. Part of me hates them. Their manipulation with poetry. Another part of me recognizes their mindset. Control the variables, control the outcome. I, of all people, know that when you've seen people you love die because you were 1 second late, you start thinking like that. You shouldn't, but you do anyway. The book doesn't let you comfortably root for their long game. It asks whether a better future bought with bred children and stolen choices is actually better, or just tidier. That question struck a deep, personal nerve in me. Because in my galaxy, it's not a question, it's a reality. There's a lot of time and conversation spent on politics and trade between the Landsraad, the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, and Choam. Yeah, it's a lot of names. At times it can be dry, long, tedious, and confusing. But it's the same game as the Senate, just with sharper teeth and less pretending. He who controls the spice controls the universe isn't a cool villain line. It's a smooth, simpler way of communicating to the reader the Imperium's infrastructure. One based on wars fought not over ideals, but over supply chains. I will say that as a soldier, I understand just how intertwined the two are in war. As a former slave, I've experienced it firsthand in that the people at the bottom always pay first. In Dune, the Fremen pay in water. Slaves pay in everything. Nobles pay in mostly other people. Herbert's not sentimental about revolt either. His aim is to show the reader that, yes, revolution can be justice, but it can also just be a new boot on the same foot. As far as the action and scale of the book, it's not a non-stop battle. When violence comes, it lands because the book spent time making you understand terrain, scarcity, and ritual. The worm stuff is insane, in a good way. I like how the sandworms are written as beasts vital to the production of spice and ecosystem of Arrakis and are not merely monsters for monsters' sake. What was interesting to me was the way Herbert incorporates the ecology of Arrakis into its people's theology and warfare. For example, you don't defeat Arrakis. You negotiate with it, or you die. Combat there is tied to culture. The Fremen aren't generic fierce warriors. They're a people shaped by water debt and dream of green. And that dream gets used by leaders always. There were several themes in the book that wouldn't leave me alone. The first one, of course, is prophecy. Specifically, its influence on people and ultimately yourself. Once people believe you're the one, your choice is narrow. You can resist the label or wear it, but the crowd still projects onto you. The second theme is addiction dependence. Spice isn't just a MacGuffin, it's need woven into civilization. Empires get addicted to control the same way bodies get addicted to spice. The third theme is fatherhood and lineage. Specifically how, within the story, bloodlines determine inheritance of violence, name, and mission. For example, such things get passed down without anyone asking the kid Paul first. The fourth and final theme is ecology. Or to put it in simpler terms, change the planet, change the people, change the religion, change the war. It's an intriguing and vital concept that expands the scale of the story, while adding to what makes it unique. What I didn't love, because a review should be honest, is that sometimes it's dense. You'll hit passages that feel like a lecture in a throne room. Trust me, I've been there. But stick with it if you can, because the lectures are usually setting a trap for a later payoff. I'm also not a fan of how cold it is about love in some places. In Dune, love is often subordinate to dynasty, survival, and strategy. It's realistic for those characters in the story. A certain former queen, now senator, I know would still call it clear-eyed. I call it lonely. If you want a simple, good guy wins, everyone hugs ending, this isn't that kind of book. It's the kind that wins awards and then haunts you. In short, Dune is brutal, slow in the best way, and it understands something most people don't want to admit. Power doesn't free you, it cages you. I don't love that lesson, but I respect that the book refuses to lie about it. So, here is my rating for Frank Herbert's Dune. The overall story, with its betrayal, survival, ascent, dread, for me, is a 9 out of 10. The characters, Paul, Jessica, Stilgar, even the Baron is disgustingly vivid. They are a 9 out of 10. Desert authenticity, now this was a big deal for me, is an 11 out of 10. I'd give the politics in the book an 8 out of 10. They're worth it in the long run, but maybe keep notes if you're tired. The emotional warmth of the characters in the story is, for me, a 6 out of 10, regardless of it being intentional for the tone and culture of the story. My rating for whether or not it will change how you see power is a 10 out of 10, with my answer for that being, unfortunately, yes, it definitely will. Overall, I'd rate the book a 9 out of 10. I'd recommend it to anyone who thinks one person can fix a broken system, so they can argue with the book the way I did. I'd also recommend it to those who like strategy, messiahs with cunning wit, and deserts that act like characters. Those who are tired of stories that pretend revolution is pure. Those who can handle a hero who's both brilliant and frightening. That being said, if you want constant action without setup, and if you hate reading about political intrigue and economic war, then this book might not be for you. My final thought, the part I'd say quietly, is that Dune says the universe will try to make you into a symbol. And although people may love the symbol, they fear the person underneath it. It says if you want to save anyone, you might have to become something they'll one day need saving from. I don't like that, but I'm not sure it's wrong. I just know if he were here, my master would have added a footnote about being patient or something or other. I'm not adding it.